even into economic terms. Following Bataille, one could praise the sun for the sense in which its excesses lead to our various existence. Rather than starting from an assumption of scarcity, assuming rational actors and a rational plan of efficiency, Bataille begins his economics with the assumption of overabundance. What marks us as organisms, he argues, is how we deal with the extra, the accursed share, the superabundance. And rather than starting at the exchange of goods and the development of class, Bataille begins his economic history by noting the way in which the solar economy has set the stage for excess. The sun pours an excess of energy into space. Energy we can never possibly use beams down upon our planet's surface. It is a gift in the truest sense, for the sun asks nothing in return. It glows brightly and forcefully, rushing toward its own demise. In the meantime, we organisms receive too much energy, and we don't know what to do with it. This excess will be spent on lavishness. Some energy will go toward growth and development, but these are finite things with limits that set boundaries to what we can accomplish. It is in the extravagance of luxurious waste that we find our true being. Each culture is defined by the manner in which it goes about wasting. The nature of surplus, rather than scarcity, is thus the foundation for economy. It is a small move to begin thinking of this as the foundation for prebiotic chemistry. It's a move in our approach to theory that brings about a large change in our understanding of life. Rather than focusing on the scarcity of possible peptide combinations that lead to something living, we think instead of the luxurious burning of the sun and the way in which it creates abundance of incredible energies and incredible order. Life, it turns out, is simply the best way to waste these things. It's true that life is complex and highly organized, but like a tornado, it's fulfilling a larger purpose, smoothing out gradients, helping chaos go about its wasteful business. It makes sense that complex life would arise in service of such a goal. And just as a tornado vanishes once its job is done, so must life eventually flicker away. The terror that a tornado is capable of creating as it cuts across a piece of land, tossing every living and non-living thing into the air without care as to where it lands, this seems the epitome of extravagant waste. Life itself is no different. And although the tornado and the living organism both arise in order to serve excess, they die serving that same goal as well. For the only thing as equally wasteful as life is death. It was 8 years ago that I was asked to give a talk at the small liberal arts college from which I received my undergraduate degree back in 1988. Manchester College has one of the oldest peace studies programs in the United States, and its affiliation with the Church of the Brethren, a peace church, has always founded its mission. It was the spring of 2001, about a week after Easter, and I was teaching the next day, so I had to get to Indiana, give the talk, and turn around quickly for Chicago. In the car on the ride home after my lecture, I could see the cornfield stretched out for miles, broken only by the occasional soybean field and wheat field in that part of Indiana, complete with little creeks full of rocks crisscrossing the landscape here and there. I could see all of this in moonlight because the moon was out and nearly full and white. The sky, what one can see of heaven at night, seemed calm. These things had a habit of changing quickly in the spring in the Midwest, though, and I could feel it inside my ears first as the pressure started dropping and the weather started changing. The rain did not build up. It didn't grow from a downpour, from a sprinkle. It just started off as a heavy flow. It was instantly like being in the middle of a mechanical car wash, with spouts forcing water like little jet streams all over the windows. After only a few minutes of this, it was impossible to see in front of the car at all. It was now completely black. No moon, no lights on the road, no chance of seeing more than a foot or two in front of me as the headlights struggled without success to point down and ahead. I pulled over to the side. I had to be careful because there could be a steep ditch to the side of such a narrow country road, and I couldn't see a thing. I wanted to be off the road completely, just in case some truck or car was crazy enough to keep moving in the storm and would hit me from behind. But I also didn't want to get stuck in mud or fall into a steep, rain-soaked ditch. I pulled over, or at least to what I imagined would be over, and I sat there. It was lightning pretty heavily now, but the flashes of white still didn't illuminate much because the rain was so thick. From time to time, I could tell that there were black clouds in the sky because the bolts of lightning would give them away. But mostly it was just darkness everywhere and winds that rocked the car back and forth. I decided to keep the car running so that an electrical shock would not destroy the battery and thus end my hopes of getting it started again. I turned on the radio to find some local weather report, and all I could hear was the high-pitched beep of the emergency broadcast system. I've seen bad weather. Growing up in the Midwest, you end up seeing blizzards and floods and tornadoes and storms. I had watched 2 tornadoes play in the sky over Bloomington, Indiana just 10 years before, twisting around each other as if it were some sort of mating dance. I know the sound of a tornado as well, that freight train on top of you, low rumble you feel inside your organs. And so, when I heard the low rumbling outside and the high-pitched whine of the radio beeping on the inside, it was very clear what was taking place. Now, as a child in tornado country, you learn from an early age that the best thing to do is lie flat in a ditch if you happen to be outside. But in terms of a violent electrical storm, it's best to be in a car, atop the false safety of rubber tires, waiting for it all to pass. The lightning was definitely a problem, because it was striking constantly, striking even near the car, hitting trees and poles and fields all around me. I was trying to sort this all out, to decide what the smart thing would be to get out and get in a ditch, or to try to ride it out in the car. And then, the rain started falling horizontally. Water fell onto the passenger's door window head on. On my driver's window, there was suddenly nothing. The wind was so loud that I couldn't even hear the radio anymore, so I switched it off. The wind was strong, the rain was moving horizontally across the land where I was. It was a surreal moment. Hard to explain all these years later because every sense was constructing it in a different way. I was still in a suit and tie. The car was rocking. I wasn't frightened at all, though. I didn't feel even a little bit of fear, only a profound sadness. I was just suddenly crying. As the rain poured sideways and the wind pushed at the car, I cried so much that my face felt swollen and puffed up. My eyes disappearing like little wet slits in my head, my nose